Hello and welcome to Inside Music, episode number 157. I'm your host, James Shotwell, and it's great to be with you again. My guest this episode is the incomparable Matty Mullins, frontman for the band Memphis May Fire, who are currently touring the United States with the rock band Pop Evil, as well as doing a few select headlining dates before embarking on this summer's first ever Rockstar Energy Presents Disrupt Festival. Now, Matty has never been on the show before, and as an odd series of coincidences, we've also never spoken, which is kind of surprising because Matty's journey in music starts in 2007, right around the time I was getting into journalism, and all I've ever written about is the world of alternative music. But for one reason or another, this is the first time we're ever speaking, and we had a great conversation. It lasts just about 20 minutes, and we touched on everything from the band's current touring efforts, their evolutions from a band in the world of metalcore to something a little bit more in the world of active rock, the challenges that presents, as well as simply growing older in the music business. And anyone that listens to the show knows that that's something that I love to talk about. I love to talk about getting older in music because it's one thing to dream about working in music, and it's another to make that dream a reality, and still yet another thing to make that reality last a lifetime. And we're all just figuring it out. We're all just caught in the struggle, myself included, and hopefully this conversation sheds a little light on how Matty is getting through. But before we get there, how are you doing? I know a lot of times these introductions just talk about how much I admire somebody or how much you should check out that person's record, and you should. The latest release from Memphis May Fire, Broken, is really good. But really, I just want to know how you're doing because I'm doing pretty well. It's been snowing here in Michigan, even though we're in the middle of April. But all in all, I'm doing quite well. I'm just signed a lease for a new apartment. I've been going to a lot of shows, and I've been working on some huge updates for Holics that we'll be talking about more in the weeks to come. It's been a good time, and it's caused me to sit back and reflect on everything that's happened as of late. You know, in just a few months, Inside Music will turn 5 years old, and it is crazy to think how long we've been having these conversations, and that, 150 some episodes is not that impressive to some people, but to me, it's never ceases to amaze me how long this has been going on, and I cannot thank all of you enough for that. And I hope that the show has been getting better. I feel like some weeks we're getting there, some weeks we're not, but I always want to keep giving you content. I want to keep creating things, so I like to share the good and the bad, come what may. That's how I look at it. Before we get to today's conversation, I want to tell you a few quick things, and you probably know the first one, but let's run through it anyways. This episode of Inside Music and all episodes of Inside Music are brought to you by Holics, the music industry's leading promotional distribution company. Now, what that means is that Holics works with record labels, publicists, managers, and independent artists, such as Chance the Rapper, to share new and unreleased music with other industry influencers, gatekeepers, members of the media, radio, and many other avenues of the industry without fear of piracy. And I know that piracy isn't something that people worry about as much today, but Holics is great for a lot of things, not just protecting yourself from piracy, but it also offers analytics that other sites cannot match. Let's say you want to share your music via SoundCloud. Well, the problem with that is that anyone can access your music using the link that's shared, and you have no analytics. You don't actually know how people are interacting with the music. There's a play count, but that's very, very basic. Holics gives you in-depth looks at how people are engaging with your music, as well as who is engaging with your music in real time. You can try Holics yourself for free by going to holics.com. That's HAULIX.com. I also want to encourage you to follow the company on Twitter at Holics because that's where we share updates about this show, Inside Music, as well as guides to working in the music industry and announcements regarding our live dates. And we have a few coming up, including an appearance at Launch Music Festival in Lancaster, Pennsylvania later this month. And finally, I want to encourage you to check out the latest Memphis May Fire album, Broken, which finds the band evolving, growing, and just becoming the group I think they were always meant to be. Now, they'll tell you that they didn't see this evolution coming when they started in 2007, but if you follow their records over the years, this is where things were always headed, and it's only getting better from here. So please make time for that record, but right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Matty Mullins.
Destin, Florida, playing here tonight.
Okay, Destin, Florida. I guess the weather's probably pretty all right.
Yeah, man, it's great, dude. It feels like vacation on the road. We love it.
Well, here in Michigan, where I live, and it snowed 3 days ago, it probably feels quite different.
Yeah, for sure. Are you guys close to Detroit?
Grand Rapids, actually. In fact, I just saw you guys here when you were here just a couple months ago. You guys are out. Who are you out with right now? Is it the Pop Evil tour?
Yeah, we're out with Pop Evil.
Love that band. My buddy Josh used to be their drummer for a while until they had got their current one, and they are a Grand Rapids band. So there we go, small world. We tied it together.
There we go. Yeah, no, they're awesome, man. They're great people for sure.
What's it like to be out? It's so funny because I like the way that Memphis May Fire has evolved over the years, because it feels like, everyone in the alternative scene kind of starts there, and it's up to you to kind of grow out of that reaches. And I feel like Pop Evil has kind of become a staple of a more general rock scene or mainstream rock scene, or however you want to put it. And seeing you guys out on the road with them, you kind of get that little like pull up into that world. So what is it like to, I guess, see those audiences who probably haven't maybe experienced your music before?
Man, it's crazy. We feel lucky, you know what I mean? Like, having been a band for 11 years and, touring the world, and we've played on every continent other than Antarctica. And it's like, when you get to that point, sometimes I think that a lot of bands feel like there's really not any more room to grow. And, you kind of hit a ceiling or whatever. And so it's really awesome to be at this point in our career where, we feel like it's a fresh start and it's exciting, like we get to play in front of people that have either never seen us, or some of these fans have never even heard of us before, some of the people at these like Pop Evil shows, and like we did a tour with Seven Dust, and it's like some of those people don't even know what Warped Tour is, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's rad to get in front of these people and to continue to grow our fan base and to play for people who really respect and understand what it is that we're doing with our music these days.
Now, if we could go back in time to 2007, to the early days of the band, what would you then think of if you could hear like you'd be out with a band like Pop Evil today? Would that have always been the goal, like what you were hoping to work towards, or would you be like, what we're going to be like with what kind of band? Like, what kind of rock bands are we out with?
Yeah, no, we definitely wouldn't have had any clue that this would be what we were doing, like in 2007, like I was 19 years old, and we thought metalcore was going to be the new arena rock. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I remember.
Yeah, like everyone thought that new wave was going to last forever, and just like anything else, I mean, it came and went, and so it's really cool to be out with bands like this now, and also to have grown up a little bit and to really have a deeper appreciation for active rock. Like we all listen to rock music now. Like none of us listen to anything really heavy anymore. Or I guess, how people classify heavy, like with a lot of breakdowns, and, that's not our palette anymore. And so, it's cool, man. It's cool to get older and to, your taste to change, but also to have opportunities to still pursue what you love, and do it the way that you want to do it at this stage in life. So it's cool.
Absolutely, and I don't know if you found this to be true, but I guess in my experience of working with kind of the bigger rock and the bands in the regular rock arena, those fans, if you can get them into what you're doing, they seem like they're so dedicated. Like you said, there are people that have never heard of Warped Tour, but would tell you. But if you ask them about the bands that they love, like Pop Evil, for example, they've been following them since before Memphis May Fire was even a group. Like they're such a fervent audience, where sometimes metalcore can be a little more fickle.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's not, I wouldn't say it's easy to tap that like active rock market and to gain those fans. But you're right. Once you do, they're yours forever. I mean, they're not putting on a record, sitting behind their keyboard, just like waiting to hear something that they don't approve of so that they can put something on Instagram about it. You know what I mean? Like those people are there to support music because they love music, and that's not how all metalcore fans are. I mean, not everybody is like a keyboard warrior. But it seems like a lot of what's on the internet, the people that really make their presence known on the internet are just complaining, and so when you get out and play these rock festivals, or go out and do these rock tours, it's like, man, these guys come out and they just want to watch music and have a drink and have a good time. And they really appreciate a high energy live performance that's captivating, and we've always loved being a band that can provide that. So it's definitely refreshing playing shows in this world for sure.
Is engaging with the audience different? I mean, it feels like the metalcore world compared to active rock world. Metalcore seems to be a lot more tapped. It's a younger demographic, generally speaking, and they're more tapped into like all things social media and everything like that. Whereas active rock fans, I sometimes I wonder where those circles congregate because it's not the same places as everybody else. So has it been kind of a learning exercise for you guys to be like, oh, this is a whole different way to interact with people or to engage an audience?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, you have to approach this kind of audience differently. It's not, not all of these audiences are wanting to circle pit. The majority of the crowd will jump, they'll mosh, but I mean, no one's hardcore dancing, and no one's like really here to hit each other. You know what I mean? It's like they come out and they've got a drink in their hand and they just want to rock out and bang their head and have a good time. And so how you navigate that kind of crowd and the type of energy that you're looking for from that type of crowd to fuel your own energy, you just have to be aware of that, and you have to know how to command that type of crowd. But yeah, we're definitely learning for sure.
That's great, man. And do you think, is this kind of in a generalistic, is this kind of where Memphis May Fire is headed, I guess, future-looking wise? Because, being exposed to these kind of rock bands and seeing how that world works, do you feel like gravitating more and more into the active rock world is where you ultimately see yourself going professionally? Or is it, is it nice to kind of dip your toes in the water, but you're always this other person at heart?
I think that we would love to exist in both. Like the tour that we're doing this summer, Rockstar Disrupt Tour, that tour is Thrice and Sum 41 and The Used and Circa Survive and Sleeping with Sirens and like all these bands that like we grew up on and kind of like existed in that same world with. And it's like, we don't ever want to turn down opportunities to tour with bands like that or to do tours like that when they make sense and when they feel right. But we definitely want to expand on our presence in the active rock world. We want to really focus on those festivals, and we want to, with the music that we write, we want to make sure that we're writing music that our supportive fan base that's been with us forever is going to listen to and enjoy, but also writing songs that can tap into a world that we haven't touched yet. And our new record, Broken, was definitely like our first attempt at that. And I think it turned out really cool, and I'm really excited about it. But I think that there is an aspect to the record that feels like it was our first attempt. You know what I mean? And so we're just learning and growing and loving going through the motions and enjoying the ride,
Absolutely, man. And I wanted to talk about that because the Disrupt Tour it's kind of one of this new crop of tours that are kind of going up to replace Warped Tour. And last summer, I felt like the conversation was, what's going to happen to this alternative marketplace in a world without Warped Tour, because it always served as, it was a big gathering point for the community, yes, but also for bands on the tour. It was a good time to make money and sell merch and be out there for the summer and expose to all these kids. Disrupt seems like it's going to do a good job of filling that gap in, but when did you first learn of it, and was it something you guys were immediately like, yes, we want to do that? Or can you tell me a little bit about just joining on to it?
Yeah, absolutely. We found out about the tour when we got our offer, because there was like no talk about it, and obviously it was like kept under wraps until it was announced. So when our booking agent came to us with the offer that they had sent, that's when we had found out that it existed. We didn't even think twice about it, like a lot of the bands that had already been confirmed were bands that we wanted to tour with forever. We've never had the opportunity to tour with Thrice, even in like a festival tour, like world. And so, touring with them is going to be a huge honor, and, being on a whole tour with Sum 41, Circa, dude, it's just like so many of those bands touring with is such a dream come true for us. So, we didn't even blink twice, we went for it right away. And if we get offers to do that tour again in the future, we'll definitely be doing it.
Absolutely. It is it's funny because there is a little bit more of a pop rock kind of one out there in the Sad Summer Festival, and then this Disrupt one comes along, and if you had asked me to make a list of all my favorite bands in that kind of arena of music, I feel like they're all represented here on this tour. And I like looking at the poster and trying to figure out which one is Matty Mullins and the little skeletons at the bottom of it.
Yeah, for sure. No, man, it's so much fun. It really is going to be like I don't think that anything will ever fill the void of Warped Tour. I think that was like such a specific type of tour, that, and it was its own thing, and Kevin did things a certain way, and it was awesome. And we're just looking forward to having a summer tour like this to do, and to getting to know the other bands and getting to know the staff that works with John Reese, and just hoping that it's as awesome as everyone thinks it's going to be.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about Broken for a minute, because I was really trying to hold off on this until we reached May so I could ask you a 6-month question. But we're 5 months after the album has been in stores basically today. How do you feel about the response to it? Because like you said, it was kind of a foray into this new world for you guys. How do you feel? Has it done what you wanted it to do so far? Do you feel like it was a success making this move? Obviously, it's working well in the current state, but I guess kind of in a big picture sense.
Yeah, man. So this is really our first attempt at radio ever. So The Old Me, which was the first single that we dropped, it sat at the top 20 at Active Rock for 6 weeks straight. And that's ludicrous. You know what I mean? We were essentially competing for slots against bands that have been doing this forever, and surpassing some of them on the charts. And more than anything, what that showed us was just that, the active rock community likes the way that we write songs. And that's so rad, like that feels like such an accomplishment to us. And it really made us feel welcome into that community. As far as the overall response to the record, when we sat down to make this record, we knew and even spoke about the fact that there was going to be a lot of backlash. You know what I mean? Whenever bands decide to grow or go in one direction or another, people are offended by that. And I think what people really are saying is like, I wish you would have written a record that made me feel 16 again. But we can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, the reason why They're Only Chasing Safety will always be my favorite Under Oath record is not because it's their best record. It's because I got my first car. I was 16. I started dating the girl that one day would become my wife, and we were driving around and listening to that record. And it doesn't matter what Under Oath does, they're never going to make me feel that way again. But I think that that's what people subconsciously are saying when they're like, oh man, like write something like Challenger, or write something like The Hollow or whatever. And it's like, man, we would be taking such a huge step backwards, not only in songwriting, but in production. I mean, those records sound terrible. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're so thankful that we got to make those records. We're never going to stop playing those songs live. We will always be Memphis May Fire. But this new record and this new direction for us is something that we're really excited about. And it's been really easy to tell who is our supportive fan base and who is just along for the mosh,
Absolutely, and I feel like you really hit a nail on the head there with the way that people connect to albums, because I agree with that. I feel like anytime you see "I wish it were like this," it's really someone saying, "I wish I was young again," or "I wish I was having those experiences again," and you were just the soundtrack to that thing.
Dude, we could remix and remaster Challenger or The Hollow and put it out right now, and no one would feel the way that they felt about it when it came out. Those records came out at the right time. You know what I mean? Like, those records came out when people really wanted those songs and needed those songs, and what they were connecting to at that point in their life, whether it be something serious or something more, maybe they just used the records for fitness, or they used the records for whatever, that record brought a guy and a girl together and they got married or whatever. And that's awesome. And it's like, man, we can't recreate those moments. We're just thankful that we got to do it. And right now we're creating new moments. And in 10 years from now, people are going to be like, man, why don't you write a record that sounds like more like Broken? You know what I mean? And it's like, you just can't win in that regard. So we're having fun, man. We sit down to write a record and we're not thinking about anything except for what's going to make us stoked and hope that people are along for the ride,
Absolutely, and I think a lot of time people don't think about, I guess, part of the reason that people get obsessed with albums that from that point in their life is they don't like to think about themselves aging, and they always want to be like, well, you're still that same person. It's like, no, man, I'm like, in my case and in your case, like we're 30 now. I think about different things than I did 11 years ago, 12 years ago. I literally can't think of how to create something the way I would have back then, because the way my brain looks at the world is not the same.
Totally. Absolutely, man. Yeah. And that's the way that it is. And we know that, and we see that clearly. So we have peace about making music that causes controversy. You know, like we have peace about putting out a record that we know is going to get a ton of hate on Instagram because it doesn't mean anything to us. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't think that anyone is actually that offended that we wrote a rock record. I think that people are always just looking for a reason to complain on the internet. And when it comes down to it, man, this is the record that we wanted to make. And if we didn't make the record that we wanted to make, then we wouldn't be Memphis May Fire anymore. So it is what it is, and we're happy. And we're stoked to be out here on the road with Pop Evil. And we've got a top 20 song at radio, and life is good.
That's great to hear, man. I always tell people whenever I talk at music, when I talk at schools for music business or anything, I always tell people, like, when I started out doing the thing that I was doing, and maybe this is the case for you too. I didn't know anyone that was in their early 30s that was doing what I wanted to do at 19. And then when I got to be 30, I was like, oh, now I get why. Like that you have to change, and you have to grow, and you have to evolve. And it seems like you've been able to do it without. I mean, I'm sure that there were some like, how's this going to go over moments, but you seem to have fully embraced like change is going to come, and whatever comes with it, we will deal with when we get there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's definitely one day at a time for us. I mean, there's always going to be that underlying fear of, you know, is this going to work? Is this going to succeed? Because I mean, like, dude, the percentage of music that succeeds is less than 1%. You know what I mean? It's like, we're not guaranteed anything, and we could write the greatest record in the world and people still could like not care about it. And, you know, we're just writing the music that we like, and we're thankful for every opportunity that we get to advance. And that's where we're at.
Well, do you have any goals for the foreseeable future that you can share with me on that note? I mean, I know you have the current tour dates. You have a headlining show coming up in Lexington, Kentucky this week. At a great venue. I really love that place you guys are playing in Lexington this week. Then Disrupt this summer, I assume, probably staying on the road through the rest of the year?
Yeah, we'll definitely be locking in some stuff. We really have to get focused on international. That's something that I think that we've deprived a lot of international markets for too long. And, you know, it really just comes down to us wanting to make sure that we're touring smarter than harder over there. We love going internationally, but it really does have to make sense. And so we will be fulfilling some of that void throughout the rest of the year. And obviously, yeah, Disrupt is a huge focus for us right now, and we're really excited to get through that. So,
well, that's great, man. I'm happy to hear that things are going so well for you, because when I heard Broken, it's one of those albums that definitely speaks to, I guess, where you are now in life, and that came across. That's why I kind of wanted to chat with you about that idea so much, because I feel like it's so important for people to embrace the now and not be chasing, because it's like a drug trying to chase your former self in a way, where it's like, well, you can kind of, sometimes you might touch it or you might feel like you could do it again, but the best thing to do is just keep moving forward.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's awesome.
Well, that's great, man. Well, you have a great show tonight in Destin, Florida, a place I've never been, and I hope that you have safe travels, man. I know you're going to be up here in Michigan in a few days. Hopefully the weather stays nice. It doesn't snow again like it just did, and I'll hopefully catch you this summer on Disrupt.
That sounds awesome, man. I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much, man. Bye.
All right, see ya.